Hello, I'm David.
And I'm Tamara. So glad to have you with us. Get ready to unwind and transform your mind. Today is part 2 with our wonderful guest, Art Giser, who is the founder of Energetic Neuro-Linguistics Programming, otherwise known as NLP. And he is going to he's going to use the coding system of our unconscious to heal trauma. So don't go away.
The following program is presented by Loving Meditations.
Unwind and transform your mind with Peaceful Oasis Live, the concert series hosted by Tamara Green and David Dachinger of Loving Meditations. Masters of mindfulness, music, and storytelling transport you into a state of deep relaxation through soulful conversations, calming meditations, and expansive music, all brought to you live. View past episodes and sign up to get upcoming events and inspirations delivered to your inbox at peacefuloasislive.com. We appreciate you, our viewers, supporting our mission for peace and calm. And we're back. Art Giser is an internationally renowned NLP trainer, executive coach, leadership consultant, intuitive remote energy worker, and healer. He is the creator of Energetic NLP, a special blend of NLP, spiritual principles, and transformative energy work. And we are so happy to have Art back. Let's bring him on. Hello, Art.
Hey, I'm thrilled to be here.
Welcome back.
Oh, it's
Thanks.
so good to have you back. Wow. What the comments we were getting after your broadcast the last time was really wonderful. And so we're just so glad to continue this powerful conversation.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. So uncoding the unconscious having to do with trauma. Do you mind explaining that a little bit more?
Absolutely. A couple of things I want everybody to know before we get started. One is we're going to be working on trauma. I'm not a licensed psychologist. This is not, as we go through the processes, you might not want to start with your biggest traumas. This is recorded. You can go it again. Take it easy. Be nice to yourself. But I want you to really respect yourself. And if it's really, really intense trauma, you want to make sure you're having support on that. And the other thing on the other end, for those of you who are like me when I was younger, might go, "Oh, I don't have any trauma." That's unlikely. We all have trauma. Some of us, just particularly, I think a lot of men, we don't necessarily code it that way, but we've all had trauma. So, and the other thing, just so people know, I am an energy healer. I'm going to get the energy running pretty soon. So if you're driving, turn this off or pull over. And, the kinds of energy that are going to be running are not appropriate if you're driving. And the other thing is, even on a recording, you will access the energy again. So just be careful.
Right. And I want to put out there, Art, I'm glad you're talking about this, that, when David was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, that certainly was our trauma. The whole family, it was a trauma. So that could be an example, although that may be even too intense for some of our listeners, because we have so many people living with cancer that are our audience.
Well, and I think from most of them can probably make a determination for themselves. So something may be traumatic, but it doesn't make you, feel like, oh my God, how do I handle this?
You're right.
So I'm just saying, don't pick something that you feel completely on the edge about. You can, once you know how to do this, then you can go back and do it something. But just pick something traumatic, but not that you feel like you're barely in control of. Is what I mean.
Okay, good. So last time at the end of part 1, you were talking about the structure. There's a I don't even know how to say it. A structural system with the unconscious mind or trauma. Go into that. I'm curious.
Yeah, this is something that comes out of NLP that we brought into energetic NLP, and it blew my mind when I first learned about it. If you think about it, let's say you think about something that makes you happy, you immediately know it makes you happy. You think about something that makes you sad, it makes you sad. You think about something and you know you're thinking about the future or the present or the past. You think of something you believe in and you know you believe in it. You think of something you doubt. You think of something that makes you angry. So how do we recognize how we're packaging these thoughts? It's like, how do I know this is something I believe? How do I know it's the past, not the future? And it turns out there's an unconscious coding system that everybody has. And some of that coding is universal, a lot of it's idiosyncratic. But when you start discovering what it is, you can start using it. And the results are magical. It's kind of like if I was standing at a distance and had a wine bottle in one hand and a soda bottle in the other, even at a distance, you would know this is a wine bottle and this is a soda bottle, because the shape of the bottle is a code that your mind recognizes. And when we talk about the coding system of your unconscious mind, it'd be like if I poured the wine in the soda bottle, it would become soda. If I took the soda and poured it in the wine bottle, it would become wine. And you can actually change beliefs, thinking, time frames by using the coding system once you know what it is. And later on, we'll teach people about how to put trauma in the past.
Right, because we keep bringing that past into our present, don't we?
Yeah. If I can tell a quick story, I was giving a talk years ago, and this one woman, I was really impressed. She was wearing a neck brace, and she was clearly really uncomfortable, and I was quite flattered she made it to the end. And at the end, I wish I'd have done this earlier, but at the end I went, boy, how are you doing? I mean, you look really uncomfortable. And she goes, well, I was in a bicycle accident, and I just can't relax. And I talked to her a little bit, and I go, well, you're still putting the accident in the present. And I taught her how to put it in the past, and she relaxed so quickly, she literally started to fall out of her chair.
Wow.
And the thing is, her body couldn't heal as quickly as it was able to heal because her body was still in that fight or flight state. So she couldn't relax. And any kind of trauma, there's a tendency to be coding it as the present, but we just don't know we're doing it. And once we know we're doing it, we can recode it.
So many times we get people to start telling the story of what happened, and that seems to reactivate the trauma, put it into the present so easily. What can people do in a practical sense in terms of the story and diffusing the charge that's involved?
Yeah, and it's one thing that with my clients, I have to go like, I'm not a talk therapist. I mean, talk therapy is great, but I'm not. And they'll want to tell you every little detail. And I go, what you're doing is wiring in the energy. So if that's what you want to do, go ahead. But you already know the story. I don't need to know that much details. So, I mean, part of it, people can train themselves that if we start noticing we have our story and we pretty much tell it the same way, and that starting to become aware of that and going, is that really helpful? But, and we'll talk about this a bit more later too, but part of what can keep that happening is something is not resolved. It can be, why did this happen to me? Or why haven't they been punished? Or was I bad or wrong? Or whose fault was it? Or, there's something, or did God desert me? Or, there's something unresolved. And so often I'll help people to go like, what isn't resolved in your mind? So that you have to keep pulling it into the present. But the good news is you can use that coding and put it in the past even before you resolve anything, and it makes it easier to resolve it.
And that's one of your processes that you're going to be doing with us today, correct?
Yeah, and it's really easy. It's the great thing.
It's kind of amazing that a lot of the things that are very helpful are extremely simple.
I know, it's mind-blowing. It's like, once you know, you go like, I remember a client once going, that's been screwing up my whole life, and that's all it was. And I go, well, I saw an old movie about Christopher Columbus, who I know is now has a mixed reputation, but there was a scene, it's after he's discovered the Americas, and he's at some big banquet, I guess with royalty, and he's sitting next to somebody who's like a duke or something, and who isn't happy to be sitting next to this commoner. And the duke looks at him and he goes, well, after all, what you did really wasn't very hard. And there were these boiled eggs in the shell, and he gives one to the duke and he goes, can you get it to stand up? And the duke's trying to get it to stand up, it keeps falling over, and Columbus takes it and he taps it so it flattens out, and then it stands up, and he goes, really easy once somebody shows you how to do it.
To sail across all those oceans to get exactly. Wow. So I'm assuming that this might be a tie-in to the trauma, but I have heard you talk about the different agendas, or we have, it's interesting because so many times myself, or I've heard other people say, part of me wants this and part of me doesn't. Part of me wants this relationship, part of me doesn't, that kind of thing. Or I really want this thing, but then there's they sabotage it in some way, right? So that's what you mean by parts and agenda. So if you can go into that, that would be great.
Yeah, and that's just the beginning part. So it's a big part, and we'll in energetic NLP we call it whole being permission or whole being alignment. And a lot of people go, gee, and I visualized what I want, but it's not happening. And one of the reasons that sometimes you visualize something, boom, it happens, sometimes it doesn't, is we're not just our conscious minds. And people act like we're just our conscious minds. People have a soul, a spirit, a soul, a conscious mind, an unconscious mind, a body, and they're living within their karmic field and within a field created by spiritual contracts. And to have what we call whole being permission, you have to line up the spirit, the soul, the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, the body, karma, and spiritual contracts. And what you were just referring to is a great, again, thing that came from NLP called parts. And NLP is very practical. And the people who started NLP back in the 70s were going, well, when people go, part of me wants this and part of me wants that, what are they talking about? And in NLP, sometimes it's an internal conflict that's conscious, because we can consciously want opposite things. But the unconscious mind has almost like sub-personalities. There's only one of us, but we have different facets to it. So like people are like diamonds. There's only one diamond, but there's all these facets. And the unconscious mind is quite complicated. And people talk about inner child work. It's sort of more like inner children. Part of you, got some programming got wired in when you were 4, some you were 8, some when you were 20. You have an internal wisdom. You have an internal lazy part. You have an internal achiever part. We have all these different parts of us, which is really, really good when they're working together, because that's what gives us our complexity and our ability to deal with change and be creative. But very often this is happening without any kind of conscious awareness, so the different parts are just in conflict. So there's a lot in NLP about getting the different parts in alignment. Okay. But that's still only part of the picture. And I discovered years ago, really by accident, I was working with this woman, really wonderful woman, smart and talented and very attractive and big-hearted and just a great person. And she didn't have any trouble having boyfriends, but she had trouble having boyfriends she could really build a life with. They weren't like bad guys that didn't beat her up. It wasn't like that, but they just weren't long-term material, which is what she wanted. And I was working with her, and all of a sudden her soul pops in, and her soul is going, I don't want that. I want her to be independent. And I went like, oh. And that's what started me realizing this. And I need to explain what I mean by spirit and soul, because people use those words to mean completely different things. And I'm not saying the way I'm defining it is like the right definition, but I just want to explain what I mean.
Okay.
So we have a physical self and a non-physical self. What I'm calling the spirit is the higher frequencies of your non-physical self. So literally like higher, like a soprano versus an alto. And higher not as superior, but just higher frequencies. And the higher frequencies, that part of ourselves is vast, and it sees the big picture, and it knows what your life is about and why you're here and how your life fits into the unfolding of humanity. So your spirit, the way I'm defining it, is vast and has this great perspective. And for better and for worse, it's kind of like the perfect parent. It's going, whatever you want, dear. You know, you want to be healthy. That's a valid spiritual path. You want to struggle with disease. That's another valid spiritual path. Not because it doesn't care, but because it sees this is all valid choices. And, you know, it's like the parent going, whatever you want. You know, you want to quit being a Harvard lawyer and join a rock band. I love you. Do whatever you want. You know?
It's your choice.
It's your choice. Again, it's coming out of love, but it's coming out of this vast perspective. What I'm calling the soul is lower frequencies of your non-physical self. And, you know, and that's when people talk about soul retrieval and soul damage. That's what they're talking about. And the way I see it, that part of us, our soul, these lower frequencies, it's kind of a click above our personality. It has wants, it has needs, it has desires, it has fears. And our souls are very connected to this life and also other past lives. And anything that's unresolved from a past life or this life can really weigh on your soul. So if you spoke your truth in another lifetime and they killed you for it, your soul is likely to go, ooh, be quiet. And the woman I was talking about earlier, she'd had earlier lifetimes where when she got in a relationship, she just surrendered to the other person and lost herself. So her soul was going, I want her to be independent. Now, of course, you can be both, you know.
Of course.
But her soul was stuck in this thinking like, oh no, she's going to lose herself again, which wasn't necessarily true at all.
Yeah.
And so our souls are kind of partially in this life, but they're kind of stuck in what they learned from other lifetimes, whether it fits or not. And a lot of people who end up in my programs will talk about past lives where they were burnt at the stake, or, you know, they were called a witch, or, you know, ostracized for being a healer. And for a lot of us, we have to let go of that to go like, you know, in the United States today or in Europe today, probably not going to get burned at the stake for being a healer. You know,
Right.
In fact, you could be rich and successful.
Yeah. Go figure.
So your spirit has an agenda, your soul has an agenda, your conscious mind has at least one agenda, but sometimes we're consciously conflicted. The unconscious mind has multiple agendas, and then your body has its own agenda.
Right.
And then, again, within that, there's your karmic field and spiritual contracts. The good news is all of these things can be worked at, and in energetic NLP programs, we do a lot to align, to get this whole being permission and alignment, so that your spirit, your soul, your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, your body are all in agreement in what they're trying to create in your life, and your karma gets cleared and healed so it will allow it, and your spiritual contracts get changed so it will allow it. So, and part of the reason I think this is so important is I have so many wonderful people that I've had as clients or students who are beating themselves up like, I must be visualizing wrong. You know, there's this kind of, I mean, for everybody, yes, visualization's important. It's not the whole story. You know? And if it was, we'd all have peace and happiness and, you know, in the world. So I think it's important to people to get we're complex beings, and we're just, I mean, the first time I heard about visualization, I was 24. I was going to the hottest disco in San Francisco. And I thought, okay, I'm going to visualize what I want. And I'm not going to go into details, but it happened. But I was in alignment with that particular event at that age. Other things weren't necessarily, that I wasn't that in alignment. And, you know, later I think, how come that doesn't work more often? You know, kind of thing.
Right.
But it's because we're complex. And in energetic NLP, we deal with all these levels of complexity. And it doesn't mean it's hard. It just means they're all important.
Right. And one is not more important than the other. They're just, it's just we're getting an understanding so we can learn how to deal with it and put it in the past, like you talk about.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying. And that's, it's not, we don't need to treat one as being right or more important. It's how do we align all of them? That for every, so like the woman that I mentioned, her soul didn't want her to be independent. What her soul needed to learn was that she could be in a relationship and it actually feed her authenticity, not destroy it.
Right.
So it wasn't that everything couldn't be in alignment. It's her soul just didn't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. And her spirit was going, yeah, whatever you guys want. I'll help. You just let me know what you decide.
Oh, what's your choice? It's okay.
It's like, well, I love you. It's like,
this is fascinating stuff. We have to pick up right where we left off. We're just going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Art Giser.
Yesterday, there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise. And now, there's something in the air, and a sparkly shimmer on our skin, restoring everything within. Dreamy, breezy, we go. Easy, easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other. Beyond gravel, beyond all.
Peaceful Oasis Live is on the E360 TV app. Watch us live on the Health and Wellness channel and catch our past episodes on your favorite smart device by downloading the E360 TV app from the App Store.
We are back with Art Giser, part 2 of his amazing energetic NLP process. And Art, you're going to share a couple of different processes with us tonight. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
And like I say, the energy will be going on the whole time too to help people. And for the people that are listening, just imagine, set your intention that your spirit and your inner wisdom are in charge of what happens for you energetically while we're here. And that in energetic NLP, when your spirit with its vast awareness and your deep inner human wisdom are working together, it forms something we call your miraculous self, which, unlike your high self just exists. Your miraculous self only kind of sort of exists until you start using it. And again, it's calling upon your spirit and your deep inner human wisdom to work together so that you have the vast awareness, but you also have that practical part. And so one of the things, before we go through how to put trauma in the past, one of the things that can hold trauma present is very often people feel unresolved about something about it, which can be, why did it happen to me? Or was I being punished? Or why weren't these other people punished? Or why didn't somebody save me? Or, there can be all kinds of things people are thinking. And one process that can be really, really powerful for people is to pretend you have a time machine. And maybe I'll explain this quick by an example. I had a client once who, when he was young, he was on a pier with his father, and he was really little, and he fell off the pier. And in his mind, it took a long time for his father to save him, because it probably didn't really, but to him it took like a long time. And he actually thought, my father's going to let me drown, which wasn't true, but that's what got wired in, was my father's going to let me drown. And even though events proved otherwise, that was still wired in. So all I had him do, and this isn't an original technique, I had him pretend he was in a time machine and go back before the event happened and talk to his younger self and go, and sometimes if the young self's like a baby or something, it's not so much a conversation so much as you think you're like transmitting something to that younger you. And with this younger him, I had him go back and let him know what's going to happen. You're going to fall off the pier. It's going to be really scary, and Dad's going to save you. And everything's fine. Everything will be fine. But it's going to happen, but everything's fine. And then I had him go back in time and debrief with the younger him after the accident. So he was both prepared and he had somebody to talk to afterwards. Because obviously as a little kid, he couldn't go to his parents, yeah, I thought Dad was going to let me drown.
Right.
I've done that kind of technique with a lot of people. A more even dramatic version of it once was, I make a long story short, but I gave a talk and I took people through some of these techniques. And when I was done, there was a woman who turned out she was with her parents, and she was a little disfigured. She'd obviously been in an accident, and she was just crying, but it was obviously like relief. And later, I went up and asked how they were doing, and she was a very devout Mormon, and she'd been in, and she believed that if you were a good person, God would take care of you. And she was in a small plane crash, and obviously she survived, but her experience was, I must be a bad, either God is a fraud or I'm a bad person, because how could God let this happen to me? And this is what she was thinking before she got rescued, but that got wired in. And she said, when I took her, the whole group through this process, she was able to reclaim that and realize I was saved, and everything. So very often people are trying to resolve why the trauma happened, and sometimes it's hard to resolve. I mean, if you're a little child and you were abused or hurt or raped or whatever, I mean, I can't tell people exactly what the resolution is for them. I mean, some spiritual beliefs help, or if people don't believe in that, then maybe just accepting it was random bad luck, or but no matter what a person's spiritual beliefs are, even just imagine going back in time, being with that younger you, preparing them, and then if it's something that happened over time, like child abuse can, you keep meeting up with them, and you keep letting them know it ends, and here's what happens in the future, and maybe you're able to tell them, I end up having a good life, or you just keep hanging in there with them and helping them process it. And what all of this is based on is, it isn't really the events in our life that affect us, it's the meaning we make of the events. And which is why two people can have identical childhoods, and one, it turns them into a fantastic person, and another turns them into a monster. It's the meaning they made of the events at the time. And so by going back, imagine you can go back in time and dealing with your younger self, working with your younger self, you can change the meanings that you made and update them. I can tell you a quick funny version of that. I had a client once, he was a young engineer, like in his late 20s, and he goes, I've always had this belief that there's something wrong with me, but I don't know what it is. And he goes, I believe that as long as I can remember. And we did some techniques to find the original event. And the original events were, he lived in a place where there were basements, and his parents had gotten one of those little gates you put so a kid doesn't fall down the stairs. Very loving thing to do. But every time he walks by it, they go, don't go down there, Mikey. And he can't articulate this, but after a while he thinks, why do they keep telling me that? I know that. And then he'd forgotten all about this, and he's thinking, well, there must be something wrong with me that they keep telling me this over and over. And so he forgot the whole event, but what wired in is there's something wrong with me, and I don't know what it is. And he was one of the ones going, you're kidding, that was because my parents were doing this loving thing, and that's messed up my life.
Yeah.
So again, trauma can come even from what your parents or other people thought was a totally appropriate thing to do. So this going back and working with the meaning is really, really, really powerful. And I don't know that if we want to necessarily take the time to do it right now, but I just want people to know it's an easy thing to do. You just imagine going back in time and just communicating with your younger self and preparing them for whatever it is, even if it's horrible, and then meeting up with them afterwards and debriefing and letting them know, whatever they need to know to have hope. It's going to end, or, when you're 18, you get to leave, or, whatever it was,
Wow.
Is that making sense? Or, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it, again, simple,
Yeah.
but powerful, really powerful. Love that. And we certainly don't want to run out of time for you to do our wonderful process while David is playing music. So let us know when we can start that.
Is this a good time to do it? Or
it's a very good time
okay,
to do it.
Great. So this is coming back to the coding system and the idea that we tend to put trauma in the present in our mind. Again, time, how we experience linear time is in our minds. And it turns out that we have a way that we, if you think of something that happened in the past, something in the present, something in the future, that you immediately know, you might not know the exact date, but it's the past, it's not the future. And it turns out that we have a coding system, and very often it's it's more or less linear. I mean, it may curve around. So for most people, they do it one of two ways. When you visualize something in your mind, if it's the past, you tend to put it off. I think this is the right orientation from the camera's viewpoint. But usually the further things are off to the left, the more they are in the past. And what's in front of us is the present. And then what goes off to the right is the future. And so again, the present's in front of us, the past is off to the left, and the future's off to the right. Alternatively, for some people, the past is behind you, and the further behind you, the more it's in your past, and the present's where you are, and the future's in front of you. In NLP, this is called timelines, and we have a whole way we work with them energetically in NLP, which I'm going to do a little bit of, but we're going to start by doing it more cognitively. So I just want to check the energy here. So for everybody listening, I want you to take an event like just some simple event that happened a month ago. Perfect timing, David. And everybody take a couple easy deep breaths and think of an event that happened about a month ago, and then picture the event. And it doesn't matter if it's a clear picture or just kind of a hazy sort of a picture if you're not a good visualizer. And then to yourself, just point at where it appears to be. So for me, and this may look opposite in the camera, but a month ago for me is about here. And if I think of something that's happening now, it's right in front of me. And if I think of something a month in the future, it's off to my right a little bit. And for some of you, it'll be more like the past was behind you, the present's in you, and the future's in front of you. And if you're not sure, it doesn't really matter, because we're just going to pretend it's a certain way for right now. And when you rearrange it deliberately, your unconscious will rearrange it. So for right now, I'd like you to all pretend that you keep the future in front of you. I'm sorry, the present in front of you. The future is off to your right, and the past is off to your left. So just pretend that's the way you arrange time. You can think of it like a number of images, like if there's images for each moment of your life, the image of the present is right in front of you, and the past goes off to the left, and the future goes off to the right. And then imagine a mildly traumatic event. And just notice, where does it want to be? Is it in front of you? Is it off to the left? And then move it off to the left. And imagine you can glue it off to the left. And let your unconscious mind know that's where it belongs. It's in your past. So take the event and put it in the past. And then imagine yourself healing from the trauma and put that in the present. So the event is going off in the past, and imagine you can glue it, you can fasten it in the past, because that's where it belongs. And in the present, there's an image of you healing the trauma. And even if you don't know how this would happen, put an image just barely in the future of your having a whole new relationship with that event, where you've let go of the trauma of it, and you have the learnings and the experience of it, but you've healed it as a trauma. Your mind and spirit have resolved whatever needed to be resolved, even if you don't consciously know how it happened. And then pick a slightly more traumatic event and imagine an image of that. Take that image and put it in the past. And imagine gluing it, fastening it in the past. And keep in mind that that's where it belongs. It is the past. Put an image in the present for the trauma being healed. And put an image just a little bit in the future of the trauma being completely healed. And you're having the learnings from the experience, and the emotion has drained off, and the trauma is resolved. Now let's combine this with another process. Again, it'll be another simple process. When you put the two together, it'll be really powerful. So think of something that's a stronger trauma, but still one you're comfortable working with. And put a symbol out in front of you to represent that trauma. So take all the feeling of it and put it out in front of you as a symbol. And it can be 10 feet in front of you, further, which is about 3 meters or further in front of you. And just imagine all the emotion of the trauma is in that symbol. And the symbol can be anything. I always just imagine a little ball of energy. And then ask your spirit to ground that symbol into the earth. So there's like a tube of energy connecting that trauma into the earth. And then ask your miraculous self, your spirit and your inner wisdom, to drain out of this symbol all the emotional energy, because all the emotional energy is either from the past or it's other people's emotional energy that you've absorbed. Because often with trauma, we're absorbing other people's energies too. So just let your miraculous self drain off of it all the energies that aren't really yours and aren't in present time. Then ask your miraculous self to fill that symbol with healing energies that will heal and resolve that trauma. And then take the symbol and imagine it comes back into you, and let all that healing energy enter your heart and your whole body and your whole energy field. And let that process through you. And then again, put a symbol out for what's left of that trauma. And again, I just always see a little ball of energy. And again, let your spirit and your inner wisdom, your miraculous self, connect it to the earth and drain off any energies from the past, all the emotional energies from the past, yours and other people's, because they don't belong in the present. And then your miraculous self fills that symbol with energies that will heal you and transform that trauma. And then bring the symbol into your heart, the center of your chest, and let the energy spread throughout your entire body and energy field. And then one more time, if there's any of the feeling left for the trauma, put a symbol out in front of you. Let your miraculous self connect it to the earth and drain off any energies that aren't yours, don't belong in present time. Let the symbol be filled with energies that will heal the trauma. Bring the symbol back into your heart, and again, let all those healing energies spread throughout your cells, your DNA, your organs, your chakras, your energy channels, all the layers of your energy field. And then imagine an image out for the trauma. And it may already be in the past. If it's not in the past, put it in the past and really glue it there, fasten it there. Be clear in your mind, it belongs in the past, it's not your present. And put an image of the trauma being healed in the present. And just a little bit in the future, put an image of it being completely healed. And then one more time, and only if this feels right to you, you can take something that's more traumatic, put a symbol out in front of you that represents that trauma. And again, it just can be like a little ball of energy. Imagine all the emotions that go with it are in that ball. Let your miraculous self ground it into the earth and drain off any energies from the past, other people's emotional energies and yours, because they belong in the past. And again, fill it with energies that are healing and nurturing for you, that will heal the trauma. Bring that symbol into the center of your chest, your heart chakra. And let the energy spread throughout your body, your cells, your DNA, your organs, your chakras, your energy channels, all the layers of your energy field, all the traumas being healed out of your system. And if there's any of the trauma left, one more time, put it out as a symbol in front of you. Let your miraculous self ground it into the earth. Let it drain off any emotional energy from the past, yours or other people's. Let it fill with supportive, healing, nurturing energies. Bring those energies into your chest. Let the energy spread throughout your body and energy field. Imagine the traumatic event, and if it's not already in the past, move it into the past and fasten it there, knowing that's where it belongs. It belongs in the past. Imagine an image in front of you for the trauma being healed. And the image slightly in the future of the trauma being completely healed. And there's now more space in your energy field. So ask your spirit and your inner wisdom, your miraculous self, to fill you up with more of your true essence and with energies that will support you in healing trauma, moving forward in your life. And it's good if you take your left hand and your right hand pat the left side of your body, and your left hand pat the right side of your body. And then take your hands and pat the same side of the body as your hands on. Imagine the earth grounding you. And you're still going to be processing this for a while, by the way. And I just want to let people know, while you're processing this, emotions may come up today, tomorrow. If they do, that's great. Just be mindful of them. If emotions start coming up, they're coming up to be released because they're old. And a lot of it won't even be your emotional energy. So just notice it and go, oh, okay, good, that's leaving. And just don't fix it, don't do anything with it, just let it go. So how are you guys doing?
Wow.
In the zone.
Yeah, very good. Again, I always say this, but it's so true. What you're saying, Art, and then David's music kind of takes it to a whole nother level. Just profound, actually. Stuff I didn't know was coming up, so it was fascinating to me. But do we need to go to a break and come back?
Yeah, let's do a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Right back.
Great.
The doctor told me the answer, and now my head is spinning. He said I'm leaving with cancer, and my journey is just beginning. I'm stressed out and afraid. I have cried and I have prayed. Time to quiet my mind and be still. Take a deep breath and just chill. I put in my earbuds and decompress. Touch play on the app to ease my stress. I'm choosing peaceful relaxation with loving meditations. I'm loving meditations.
And we're back with wonderful Art Giser, Energetic NLP, and we just absolutely know for sure that people are going to want to know how to contact you and what you're offering. That was incredible.
Oh,
so
thanks.
Yeah, wow. So you do have a wonderful gift for our listeners. Do you want to start there, and then we'll take it from there?
Well, I will say this is my website. It's being redone, so I just have to give a little caveat, and it works. But yeah, so there's a program. It's 4 videos that take you through energetic NLP processes and teach you how to do different processes that we're doing today that you can do on your own. And the theme of it is clearing blocks to living a miraculous life. And in it, you clear unconscious programming. We work on spiritual contracts, which we didn't have time to do here, and clearing energetic programming, ancestral programming, etc. And it's called the Blockbuster mini course. And yeah, if you go to blockbuster7.com, and Blockbuster one word, and 7.com, and it's free. And he says modestly, I've been getting really great feedback on it, so I'm really happy with it. It's only about a month old, so I'm really happy with it.
Yay.
And then the other thing is, I'm doing a program, depending on when people are listening to it, at the end of July 2021, starting July 31st and August 1st and 2nd. It's virtual, so it's online. And it's called Discover Your Miraculous Abilities. And it's 3 days of a lot of clearing of karma, of spiritual contracts, of programming, of limiting beliefs. But even more, it's about opening up people's abilities to use healing energies for themselves and other people. And the thing is, using healing energies is actually really, really, really simple. The reason it takes 3 days is doing it safely. You need to learn some things about how to do it safely. But by the end of the 3 days, everybody who's in the program can do healing energy work with themselves and with others. And it's not just for healers or coaches, it's for anybody. And doing that, learning how to work with earth and universal energies is for mental, emotional, and spiritual healing. And legally, I can't claim it's physical healing. My belief is that it helps with physical healing, but I can't say that it absolutely does. And but also, as part of it, everything within energetic NLP is about people's personal and spiritual development. So as you're learning to use healing energies, it's just opening you up so that you open up so much more of your full potential and your spiritual abilities. And for people that are a part of the Oasis community, if you use the, it's on the screen at www.miraculous1.com, one as a numeral, miraculous1.com. And if you use the coupon code OASIS with a capital O, then you'll get a 90% discount. And the early bird on it it's only $97 anyways for the early bird. So it's under $10 if people sign up soon.
And that's just
for 3 days. And people love the program. I mean, I've had so many people tell me it's a totally life-changing program.
Wonderful.
Well, that's a fantastic gift,
Wow.
and we appreciate you offering both of those gifts to the people that are watching. Yeah. And we have just about another minute. So, Art, anything else you want to talk about? What you're up to?
Just to let people know that there's just so much you can do around trauma, and both that mini course and the 3-day program would be fantastic around trauma. And I think for anybody with health crises, it's a tremendous resource. We've had a lot of people in the programs who do have major health challenges going on, and the difference it makes in how they approach life and their enjoyment of life and their ability to access their healing resources is phenomenal. So I really want to encourage people to at least do the Blockbuster mini course.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing those tools with us. And Art,
You're
we've
amazing.
set a new precedent going 2 episodes with you, and there's still, I'm sure, so much more we could cover. But thank you so much for your generous offering of your time and your amazing abilities.
And gifts that you're
Yes.
giving our listeners. Thank you so much. Deeply appreciate you.
Thank you. An honor and a privilege, because I so appreciate what you're doing. It's so needed, and just so many people, when you hear a health diagnosis, and when I was younger, I had some pretty terrible ones myself, that, it's just so easy to think that something can't be done, or that it's a foregone conclusion. And when I was a medical researcher, we knew even then, like, miracles happen. And
They certainly do.
and the worst that's going to happen if people pursue the kind of thing you're doing, the kind of thing I'm doing, is your quality of life is incredibly better. That's the worst that will happen.
Right. Yes. And we like to say they're an active participant in their healing journey. So there's so many ways we can be powerful in our own right.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, Art. We'll definitely have you back someday. Can't
I'd
wait.
love it.
And you'll want to join us in 2 weeks. Let's see, that is July 28th, where we're going to have Rebecca and David Shackney talk about how to handle difficult emotions. So more on handling difficult emotions. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Art. You're wonderful.
Right.
And
Thank you, Art.
We'll
Thank
see you
you both.
soon.
Have a great evening.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.